yes, I suspect that there's a real push now to get this stuff out, possibly because Trump is in this country.
Andrew Lownie, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, clearly you spent many years researching many aspects of Prince Andrew's life. And I know that you looked a lot into his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. We've seen more and more stuff coming out, given the pressure that there is from Epstein's victims and from the Democrats. Do you think that there is more to come out about Jeffrey Epstein's relationship with Prince Andrew, and perhaps as soon as this week?
Yes, I think there's lots more to come out. I mean, we've had David Boies, Virginia's lawyer, saying that. We've had various people who've seen some of the Epstein files. And though I'm sure they've been very extensively dry cleaned, I don't think we'll find too many references to Trump in them. Yes, I'm sure there's a lot of material. I mean, there's a lot of material that was in my book that was taken out for legal reasons, including material on Peter Mandelson. So we're going, but I think certainly on Andrew, I mean, the breach has been broken of the dam. And, you know, I think it's amazing. We've got these PIPEX emails. We've got the 18,000 from...
The PIPEX emails?
These are two sets of emails. One of the 18,000 that Bloomberg have released, which basically did for Mandelson. But we've also now got these emails on the PIPEX system.
Just before we go on to that, you mentioned what you had uncovered about Epstein's relationship with Mandelson that had to be taken out. Presumably that's something that you still can't talk about, even though Lord Mandelson has now resigned.
I think some of this material I hope we can add to the book at paperback stage, and it's part of a very wide net. It was Mandelson, after all, who got Andrew the job as trade envoy. I mean, they're very close. The two were the witnesses at Lynn Forrester de Rothschild's wedding to Evelyn de Rothschild, and that's, again, a very interesting relationship which hasn't been touched on. But I think there are a number of things that can happen now. I think that there should be some sort of investigation into Andrew's time as a special trade envoy, and ambassadors forced to give evidence on oath. I think the files on his time as a special trade envoy, which have remained closed, which should be opened, because that would reveal who were on these trips, which included Epstein and others, and what they were doing. So there's a lot more, so we say, transparency and accountability that can come from our side, quite apart from what happens on the American side. So I think there's a lot that can still happen and a lot that can still emerge.
So is there a possibility that some of this new material, some of the new evidence concerning Andrew's relationship with Epstein could come out even this week with President Trump here on his state visit?
Yes, I mean, I think things are clearly moving at quite a pace. We've got the victims prepared to give their accounts so that they can talk about on the floor of the House. We've got some of the congressmen who've seen the material, I suspect will come forward. Yes, I suspect that there's a real push now to get this stuff out, possibly because Trump is in this country.
Of course, Prince Andrew has always denied, for example, ever having had any kind of dealings with Virginia Giuffre. He claimed that he didn't even know her. He did reach that out-of-court settlement with her. Do you think that is an area where we might find out more about the terms of that settlement?
I don't know if we're going to get the terms of the settlement. I mean, it's taking time, it seems to me, to deal with Virginia Giuffre's estate, and that was clearly sealed. But I think what's very interesting is the gagging order only lasted a year. The story of Virginia Giuffre's own memoir coming out could have come out several years ago, and I'm not sure why it didn't. But we've got to remember that Knopf have paid a seven-figure sum for this book, so it's clearly got new information, and pretty sensational information. So I think...
This is Virginia Giuffre's own book, which is now being published by her family.
Yes, which is coming out, I think, on the 21st of October. So I think Andrew should be very worried about what might still emerge. And of course, there's still legal depositions, there's still court cases with people like Jess Slaley and Barclays. And this is how a lot of the stuff has emerged. And indeed, part of the material I got were from court cases, and so there may be other court cases that appear quite separate from this.
Prince Andrew has been essentially banished from royal life in any case. Is there still a possibility of more embarrassment? Do you think for the king and for other family members?
Yes, because I think once you start pulling at this ball of wool, the whole thing begins to unravel. There's quite a lot of evidence that the Queen clearly knew what Andrew was up to, and so I think that there's a lot still that could come out that's embarrassing.
What about Jeffrey Epstein himself? Of course, the verdict was suicide. There have been further inquiries which have found that there were failures at the prison, but the authorities have insisted that Epstein's death was suicide. I know that as part of your investigations, you looked into this question.
I did, and I am increasingly coming to the view that it was not suicide, and that's based on the testimony of people I talked to. I mean, Michael Baden, who did a separate coroner's report, testimony from prisoners who say this would be impossible, the cover-up that's gone on, and an FBI source of mine who actually named the person who was in the correctional facility who they believe carried out the murder. Epstein.
Well, hold on. If the FBI believed that he was murdered, why aren't they investigating?
Well, that's a good question. There have been so many investigations that really could have taken place on both sides of the Atlantic, and they've been shut down. So, it's a good question. I think it's only media and parliamentary pressure that can perhaps lead to these things being looked at again.
I mean, on that, there was this investigation that was carried out by the prison's watchdog that did identify failures at the jail, the fact that there wasn't sufficient oversight despite previous suicide attempts. But the director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons has denied any suggestion that the cause of death was anything other than suicide.
Yeah, well, of course he would. But, the fact is that Epstein was on suicide watch. The person was taken out of his cell. The two guards were conveniently both falling asleep at the same time. The cameras weren't working. As I say, Michael Baden has said that he felt that the injuries were consistent with actually someone being strangled by someone else rather than self-inflicted. All the lawyers, Spencer Cooven and others, all say that it was very unlikely that Epstein, given he was at the beginning of this legal process, wouldn't have felt that he could get out. This was a chancellor who'd succeeded in basically outwitting the authorities time and time again. It wasn't in his character to commit suicide. I don't think anyone who's closely associated with the case feels that. And just the cover-ups that have been going on, the missing bits of film, people being photographed coming in orange suits, one of the prisoners, which has now emerged. So I'm afraid I wouldn't buy the story of the director.
So do you sense then that the royal family are perhaps rather nervous about this forthcoming state visit for many reasons, not least the ghost of Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, absolutely. And in some ways, the ghost of Prince Andrew. I mean, because clearly, he might have, in other circumstances, have been there meeting Trump. He was very friendly with him. They played golf together. This is what they would say is a distraction from the sort of serious business of trade deals and things. And Trump won't like it. He keeps trying to change the subject, and the subject keeps coming back to Epstein.
Andrew Lownie, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.